Hello guys, welcome to the new Nostalgia Podcast episode 2 with Bugs, Jenny, and Oscar. We forgot to go ahead and fill in the introduction, so just let us know what you guys think. Like, share, and comment, of course. We always love the feedback. Thanks guys for listening.
And she was like, well, Santa Claus worked very hard this year. And I'm like, how do you know?
How would you know?
No, he didn't.
No. He's magic, Mom.
So when was that age? What would you say that age is?
That was 8 or 9 for me. So I would say I probably had one more year before I knew Santa Claus didn't exist.
Me too. I think I was like about 10. And I specifically remember sitting in the back seat of my mom's car. And we're driving home from school. And I go, Mom, you can tell me. Can I ask you a question and you tell me the truth? I think that's how I said it. And she's like, well, yes. And I said, okay, you can tell me the truth. Santa Claus isn't real, right? And she's like, I could see her face go from like to okay, yeah, you know, she really tried to be. No, of course he's okay. No,
she really tried to fight the whole.
She tried, but she knew she was going to be lying to me. It was kind of like one of those things. Like, do I lie to my child just to keep that innocence a little longer for my benefit? No, I'm just kidding. No, but
jeez, I wish I had a memory like that, but I really didn't.
You don't?
The way I remember it specifically was there was a time in Georgia, and of course going to the PX. The video game section was totally cased off, totally from everything else from the toys. So when going on to base, and again, growing up as a military child, you kind of get sectioned off. So you just go and play video games, and you get to play all the fucking games you want because that's what they had is there. And they only had one game, so they never, like back in the day for the Super NES or NES, they never had demos. So you just go and play the game. So as my mom would say, we just used to go to the drop a big brand, Montgomery Ward, and you used to go to Sears and you used to go and play the demos. That's what I used to do as a kid. So I remember my sister one year ago, I remember picking up a Super Street Fighter Turbo 2, and I remember saying, I really want it. And my sister was like, maybe if Santa gets it for you, or, you know, there was that time when she was like, you know, they bubble your head up with, if you're good enough, they'll get it, Santa Claus will get it for you. So I remember, I think the next day or so, within the next couple of days, I remember my sister, like, hiding, like, a big amount of boxes. And I managed to find that video game, a series of other video games, a series of other figures that I had wanted that year. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I don't think that's real anymore. So that's the way it kind of happened for me, was that I never, like, approached my parents. I never really asked anybody else if it was pretty much true. So what would you say is, like, I guess we could go and branch off that, like, what would be your worst memory as a kid?
Ugh.
I'm sorry,
that's deep.
My worst memory as a kid,
like something you completely regret. I know I have.
Oh, that I've done or that happened to me? Because I have a one that happened to me that still causes me trauma to today. It's the reason that I get very, very anxious when I dial a wrong number accidentally.
Oh, I think you've told me this.
Mm-hmm. So when I was little, I must have been
this sounds like a horror movie. Every
5
time
or
you tell
6, me. And it's when people still had beepers, and my dad had his pager, and his whole thing was, you know, if you ever need to call me at work or anything like that, call my pager number. And well, now that I'm thinking of it, I don't know if it was. It had to have been me calling his job because he answered, obviously. Now that I'm thinking of it, sorry. So I must have called where he worked, or at least I thought I did. And the man that answered the phone said, I was like, "Can I speak to my daddy?" or something like that. And he says, "Your daddy? You don't have a daddy." And
that's super creepy.
Yeah, and I was like, what? It was just like, what do you mean? And I was at my grandma's house, and I couldn't tell her what just happened because, one, my grandparents spoke Spanish, and even though I spoke Spanish when I was little, it was nowhere near as great to be able to communicate to her what the fuck just happened to me. So I remember my dad coming home, and I think I told him, I must have told him what happened, and he just kind of like dismissed it, like, well, don't worry about it, I'm here, like, it's clearly not true, so don't worry about it. But so I will never forget that for as long as I live, and that's why I have anxiety for answering wrong numbers.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
That's really bad.
As a kid, that I can remember. I'm sure there's more.
The only thing that pops to mind is when I broke my leg at Lax.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
My mom was going in Lax back home in Brownsville, Texas is a furniture store. So my mom was going in simply just to make a payment. my poor mom. And of course I was bored, so I started walking around while she was in line to go make the payment, and I see this huge ass marble table, just like the top. It wasn't the table, it was just the table top, and it was pure marble.
It was like disassembled.
Disassembled, and the table was slanted on top, like slanted on a sofa. So I was just looking at it, and of course I was 5 and stupid, and I was like, what's under that marble table?
Oh no.
So I start going under, and then I start seeing it start to wobble.
Oh, shit.
And I start trying to like get my way out of there, trying to get out, and I got out until it fell right on my leg. And like I just started screaming and screaming and screaming, and then like they all come, and all the people working there started coming, and then my mom starts panicking, and I'm like, ow, my leg. And then I was trying to take it out, and my mom said that like the skin started coming. It was
my
bad.
God. Sorry for the visual, people.
It was bad. And then eventually, of course, they got me out of there, and I was going to the emergency room, and I just remember feeling this pain that was so strong. That was like, and I remember my mom specifically telling me, don't cry, because there's babies around, and if babies see you cry, they'll cry. So I was just in the emergency room,
and then you'll be starting this whole frenzy. It'll be crazy mayhem.
So this is why I don't cry. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm just there in all this pain, just be like,
that's fucking terrible. I love your mom, but that's terrible.
And so she gives me the worst advice. She probably could, and it's affected me to later, later things in life.
We love you, Oscar's mom.
I hope you're not listening to this anyway.
The one I remember was about injuring the kid who fell from the top.
You were that kid.
Yeah, we were. Well, you can ask my brother about this. It was the one time that it was in Alaska. There was a pretty big playground that we had. And it being snowy, and of course, and once snow heats a little bit, it starts to melt. And definitely, especially off metal, it's very slippery.
Science!
Sorry. So, going up this 3-story, and I kid you not, about 3 stories, and I mean, even to this day, like, even still being afraid of heights, I couldn't fucking do it. But I did it no matter what. It was fun, just going up the tower. So it was about 3 stories off the ground.
Jeez.
And it was pure metal.
And now he's afraid of heights, just so you know.
So
this probably is why. Anyway,
it probably is, or I mean, I can't really pinpoint what made it worse, but anyway, going up with me and my brother and a couple of kids that we grew up with in Fort Greely, is we went up to the top, and we didn't want this kid. Apparently, we didn't like this kid at this time. And this
clearly,
I mean, we didn't let him up at the top level, so I don't know if it was me or if it was my brother, but we kind of kicked him down. And again, everything being pure metal, especially the ladder, just the kid just rattling down, and he hit. Okay, so the level was like left to right. So the third level was nothing, just pure ground of just the metal. So I hear bah.
Holy shit.
And we didn't know what came to it after, but I guess the kid broke his leg or his arm. I can't remember.
A limb.
Well, he broke something. So it was pretty traumatic to us. So we will never fuck with kids again.
Oh my god. Jesus. Okay.
Nothing bad to me. I mean...
Well, it did happen to me, so...
I walked out fine.
Jesus.
So it was just... That's
but
how
you forever carry that guilt.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was just... Damn.
Jesus.
That sucks.
We were those kids.
At that time.
What was the one toy that you wanted as a kid?
Well, first of all, what did we see on the way coming home? That was really
and it stopped me in
interesting.
my tracks, and I'm driving, and I'm like, okay, and I don't know why, but it was just random. But a little girl in front of our dog park was using a Skip It.
Yeah, that's
If you need to look it up, it's just it keeps tracking score just about how many loops it does. So when I saw it, I'm like, this girl is not even. First off, not even old enough.
He was debating. Yeah, seriously.
She wasn't old enough to be.
I mean, do they still have stuff out? Clearly they do somewhere, because this little girl had one.
She obviously still had it, yeah.
Unless, one of her parents, which would be like our age, just was like, oh, here, have one of my old toys. I don't know.
I really, if Jenny was, I was really contemplating on asking her,
where did you
get that? Because it's the kind of thing you just do like, no, I can't walk away from a situation like this. I mean, we can't even resort back to... I mean,
well, they still make Bop Its.
They still make Bop Its, but it's in a weird, discombobulated original form. Not the original form, which was just pull it, bop it, and twist it. Those are the only three that we really fucking needed to get by. And then you know what else hasn't changed? And if you go and look at this right now, Simon has not fucking changed.
Ooh, Simon. I love that game.
Simon is the only game, and it's probably even going back as far as our parents, that game has not fucking changed.
Well, because, if it ain't broke.
Don't
It's just good times. Actually, I want one so bad. I think we should have a Christmas where we get nothing but
toys?
Old nostalgic. Yeah, old cool toys.
That'd
So I
be
was
cool.
like, yeah.
Hunting them down would be a son of a bitch.
That'd be super fun.
I remember one Christmas it was obviously the Christmas Toy Story came out, and I was super excited, and I really, 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 really wanted the Buzz Lightyear action toy.
The big one?
As I'm here listening to us talking, weird. Would you call us spoiled? I feel like we're spoiled brats. you know what?
No. I'm gonna vote no.
Well, this is interesting because both you and I, Oscar, are only children.
Only children.
And
yeah, I have.
But you and your sister grew up far enough apart to where she was the only child for a while. And then you were the only child until your brother came along. But it was both, you guys, so.
It was kind of the way it worked, and I like it, and I've always liked it. It's just my sister got what she wanted, and then me and my brother, in a way, it really, I'm not complaining at all. It's just, it worked the way, if you had a sibling, it was just, you shared. So that's all we knew, and it worked, no matter what, it still kind of works that same way. Sharing, it was just fun. It was just, and then, of course, you have the older sister who, and I'm going to say it, she tormented us with the systems of, yeah, we're playing. We have the controller 10 feet away from the system and running around throughout the house. I remember her telling us stuff like that.
But I love listening to y'all's stories. When they're stories from growing up, I love it. It's the type of thing where it's I kind of wish I had a brother and sister, but for the most part, I don't. But were you the kind of kid, Oscar, who if they asked you, oh, do you, not that it was your choice if you had a brother or sister, but when parents are like, do you want a little brother? Or
I definitely was the type of kid who I always wanted a little brother to beat up on. I've always either wanted, and I always say it wouldn't happen since I am the first and only child. I either wanted an older sister and to be the younger brother, which obviously wasn't going to happen because, too late. Or to have a little brother. I never wanted the reverse. To me, having a younger sister always sounded to me super annoying. And having an older brother always felt, I guess, like you're going to be in competition with that person. You're always going to be...
For the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny, because I always wanted an older brother. And that's weird that you wanted an older sister.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. That's so weird. I don't know why. I always wanted an older brother. I wouldn't have wanted an older sister. And, you know, Lord help my father if there were more than two of us. Like, if I had a sister, younger or older, because I can say that, you know, I never gave my parents trouble except for my attitude as a teenager.
Oh,
I had a terrible attitude, and Mom, I've apologized to you before, but I will apologize to you again. I'm so sorry for that. Never did I want a younger sibling, ever.
You never wanted a younger sibling?
Right, never. Brother or sister.
Wow.
My parents would flat out ask me, and I'd flat out say, no. Just never did. Never. I mean, obviously, if I had one, I would have just lived with it. But you know,
or killed them.
But spoiled, yes. I'm not ever going to deny that. But
no, I think we all lived kind of through those spoiled moments because we all kind of knew eventually where we're going to get the item that we wanted. That
maybe spoiled, but not spoiled rotten. I'd say.
Yeah, I
That's
agree
true.
with that. That's very true. Almost everything. I mean, like my mom was telling us the other day, was we were never without a computer. We were never without a TV. We were never.
And that's very, very true. I'm very grateful for the childhood that I had. My parents when they grew up, they were second generation. My grandparents came from Mexico, and my dad and my aunt were born here, and my mom and all of her siblings were born here. Usually the dream is just to always make sure your kids have better than what you had, and that's definitely what my parents did, and I'm very, very grateful for that. So,
I guess going back to the toy that you kind of wanted, I kind of wanted you to elaborate. Sorry. Before we sidetracked, sorry.
I think I remember opening my Christmas presents and getting the Woody toy.
You're like, hey!
And I was like, it was definitely like, oh, okay. For Christmas for us, it was, obviously you start off the morning at home, and like I'd open presents from Santa, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. Quote unquote.
And for my parents, and then I'd go to my aunts and uncles on my mom's side. And the aunts and uncles on my mom's side, I think I mostly got clothes from them. So going to my dad's side afterwards was a lot more fun because everyone on that side is so close in age to where it's like, a lot of the toys that my cousins would have, I would want too, or vice versa. If I had something they'd want, and I knew I would get better gifts from that side too. So, we're putting it out there. I remember opening from one from
I can hear all those people listening. God, y'all are arrogant fucks.
These douchebags.
Sorry.
We're turning it off. I remember getting Buzz Lightyear from one of my aunts and uncles, and I was like, "Whoa, I love this." And then looking back and putting my life in the perspective of Toy Story, I'm sure all my toys hated me because as soon as I got them, they'd be on the floor and I'd watch TV.
That's so funny. Because you've said that before.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, Oscar, what did you think about Toy Story 3? Or like how...
I'm sure my toys would hate me.
Yeah, you were like,
They'd have no memories of me.
I don't think my toys would have any fond memories of me. I don't think they would care.
They'd be like,
if
good, we're going somewhere else.
We're going somewhere we can get played with.
Yeah.
Jeez, that movie.
Again, now I sound a little bit douchey.
It's okay. So the best gift that I wanted, and it was so awesome. It was I think it was in Alaska when I got this thing, but the creepy crawler machine, as I mentioned earlier, it was just my go-to. It was just the commercial itself. You need to look it up on YouTube. It still has the nostalgia factor for me because the jingle was so awesome. But it was this guy or these kids just all surrounded, and the female counterpart, of course, at that time was the Easy Bake Oven. But you just make cakes.
I actually never had an Easy Bake Oven. I never asked for one, surprisingly, because I was a fat kid. I'm still fat now, so it's okay. But I never asked for one, which is strange, oddly enough. Anyway, keep going.
So it was the exact same thing. Of course, have I don't know what watt of the bulb it was, but it was a bright orange box. You had a little slit, and you just pretty much put, and I kid you not, again, this is weird. It had a certain wattage bulb, but then you have metal plates, and you have your colors, and you mix it all in however you want, and then you just stick it in there, and you let the thing just take its mold over it, and then you take it on out, let it cool, and it's rubbery. It's like those what they have now, like close enough to rubber balls or slap stickies or whatever. It's close enough to that, but it was really fun because then I was like, well, what if you could eat these things? That was like my first imagination of like, what else could you do with this stuff? What else could you do with it? And then what they did was they finally made one that you could actually, again, eat. So it was really weird, but it wasn't like close enough to where you stick it in the oven this time and you eat it. It was like stuff out of the package. You mix with water, you mix with hot water, you mix with this. And it stood the test of time. I still probably would want to hunt that down. And
I'm trying to think of the toy I always wanted when I was little. I remember always asking for a my size Barbie.
oh, jeez.
Yeah, I remember. I never got one, but that's probably fine because as I got older, I would have probably been really creeped out by it. But which is probably why my parents never got it for me in the first place.
There's a lot of movies to go ahead and protest that. It's just creepy.
Well, yeah, it was. I always wanted one of those. I don't know why. I don't know. I guess I was one of those kids who was. I mean, I still am. I'll watch infomercials, and I'm like, I need that. So, that, and I always wanted one of those like little like the Barbie Jeeps or something like stuff like that. I never got one of those, but it's okay. My parents were like, you don't need that, and they were right. They were right.
Were you really going to drive it? Probably not. Was there ever a toy that you got that you remember thinking, like, I don't know, like you just got it and you thought that you're going to want it so badly, and once you got it,
you were just so disappointed.
It was like, whatever.
Like your first experience with buyer's remorse.
Yeah, really.
Stretch Armstrong.
Oh, I always wanted one of those.
That was the only thing I can think of because it's literally all it was is you could do this to it, you could do that, but then it just goes right back. But my curiosity spawned, and I think I've said this about a dozen times. Just again, you have teeth, so my first instinct was to go ahead and see what's underneath.
Well, I remember,
so I bit into it.
I don't know why I remember biting it, but I just remember it being really salty.
It was like a sugary gooey substance.
What are you talking? Is this the
insides of a
Stretch
Armstrong?
Oh my god! Okay.
Yeah.
Were you the kid who ate paste?
No, but I was
kidding.
the kid who was curious enough to go ahead and bite into a Stretch Armstrong.
You just kind of licked the inside.
Yeah. I didn't eat it. Like, I bit enough to break the skin of
and
that
I
thing.
wouldn't do that either, but I for some reason, I remember...
Yeah.
I
was
don't
just
know.
very curious.
Strange.
Very curious as a child. So.
For me, it was the talk boy, like the Home Alone talk boy.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, this is going to be awesome. I can record people's conversations like from the movie. I can replay them. I can play them back. And I can play them back. And then I got it, and it's like, oh, that's how my voice sounds. And it was like, nope. Stop that. I think I remember recording one of my cousins using a cuss word and then playing it back from my parents.
I'm sure that went over wonderfully.
Yeah.
I was like, look what they said. What? Play that back again. I can.
What did they say?
I can rewind it.
Do you remember as a kid ever using a cuss word, not knowing it was a cuss word, and then gauging the reaction from your parents to like, oh, that's something I shouldn't say?
Yes.
I remember one time. I remember my dad telling me this story. I don't remember this actually happening, but he told me like the first time I guess I used the word like fuck. I was doing something, and all of a sudden I had something in my hand.
In the right context.
I had some in my hands, and it fell out of my hands and it broke, and I was like, fuck. And then my dad's like, what did you say? Nothing.
I like how you said that and the tablet fell.
I thought that's what we were supposed to say.
Yeah.
That's great that
It's
you use
like-
it in the right context. That's wonderful.
So the way I kind of learned was actually, it was later when, I'm going to go back to it again. It's kind of the end. But watching South Park for the first couple of episodes when it very, very, very much started. And the first couple of episodes, I think they used the word dildo sparingly.
When did that show start?
I want to say it was in
We
90s.
were like in 4th grade.
We were
I think.
little, and so it came out at the perfect time for us to learn curse words.
I want to say 96, 95? When I was watching Comedy Central when it came out to me.
I'm going to say 97, 98.
I was in Alaska when that came out. So it was funny because it was perfect weather for us to go ahead and contribute what they were feeling.
97. So we were all almost like 9 or
97,
10.
98, we were in like 4th.
9 or 10.
Yep.
So that was
pretty much, perfect age.
perfect age for going around. Nice.
So, going to, I guess, stemming from South Park, what was the one show your mom and dad would never let you watch? Which, when you look back on it, you're like, whatever, but...
I never had a show to think about. Well, yes, again, everything... I'm going to go back to Tales from the Crypt, but Tales from the Crypt was something I could watch. But, of course, when the gratuitous amounts of sex scenes that would pop up, of course, you cover your eyes. But there was a movie, and I know my mom will go ahead and pitch on this.
Gratuitous sex scenes? What are you talking about?
They're only there to forward the story.
To forward the story? Look at it now, they're just useless.
Yeah.
Just belly button humping a lot. They really didn't forward nothing.
Coming from a kid who grew up with ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC as the 4 stations I only really ever watched because we lived in a place where it was so out in the country that they didn't really get cable.
Right.
It was like you either had satellite or nothing, and then we didn't get satellite till I was older. I was like 13. And anyway,
what is this newfound treasure?
Seriously,
so many channels.
Well, so my grandma had cable, and that would whenever I was sick, I would I would stay at my grandma's, so I was like happy because I grew. I mean, like kids of our generation, we grew up with Nick and Nick Jr. and Face and Stickly. And
oh god!
So I knew all that because. Now that I look back on it, I faked being sick a lot.
But you were sick for a good reason because you knew, hey, as soon as I go to school, all the good shows are fucking on.
Exactly.
That's true.
So,
that is true. That is how I saw it. I was like, hey, I get to stay home and I get to watch Nick Jr. You know,
yep.
I get to watch the TV talk to me.
Entertain me, TV.
So, yeah. So. On my Tales from the Crypt comment
was going back to you were watching it on syndication.
Exactly. I did not know. It was such a stupid moment for me, and it was actually not that long ago, which is even worse. You know that I had didn't know exactly how explicit Tales from the Crypt was until you bugs showed it. I don't know what we were talking about a certain episode.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't remember that. Or I was describing it and I'd be like, yeah, Tales from the Crypt, that's totally Family Tie. I used to watch that with my parents, and both Oscar and Bugs looked at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Like, wow.
I was like that Family Time was dinosaurs
I used
or
to watch
Family Matters.
I used to watch Oz with my parents. Something really horrible.
Jesus. Anyway, no, but
my family would love American History X.
So then, when you actually showed me one of your favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt,
yep.
I was like, I don't remember that. And you're like, well, it was on HBO, and I'm like, oh, no wonder. So, there you go. I would watch Tales from the Crypt before Saturday Night Live or after the X-Files on Fox.
I still can't grab that show. I don't know, since it first aired, I can't get grasp of it, so.
X-Files?
Yeah,
My dad just today asked me, when is the X-Files starting? My dad was a huge
Jeez, they're doing a huge countdown on Facebook and everything.
He was a huge... When it came out on Netflix, my dad was ecstatic. He watched... Yes. He binged The Wonder Years, and he binged X-Files. And...
I was the first to come back around that because I had been introduced to Fred Savage via Little Monsters with Howie Mandel.
Oh.
And that was, if you guys
And
haven't
Princess
seen
Bride.
No, that one I hadn't seen, not until when I was about like younger. I hadn't watched that. I had just barely found out about this film.
Oh, okay.
So, and then I just also pointed out on the cover is an ambergram
Oh,
via both
yes.
sides. So I was newly introduced to this film. So I wasn't all aboard that train of pretty much just, everybody's quoting The Princess Bride. And I was like, I was all about Labyrinth at that time.
Yeah.
I was all about Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal.
You're gonna make me cry again.
I'm not. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna segue into something else. I promise. Let me see. Something I didn't like. I was trying to. I guess was I didn't have a show that my parents would let me watch. I had a certain movie my mom would never let me watch, and like I was saying is that it was not until I was like probably older is that she finally said, "Oh, you can watch it. It's whatever." But it was the Flowers in the Attic.
Oh.
I like how you both look at me, but yeah, it was that movie, and she had hid that movie.
Well, for good reason.
Yeah, I know that now. That movie was hid from us pretty well. You can't watch this. You can never watch this.
Well, good. Because, the book is even worse. But, oh, Jesus.
And they did a remake, or they made a sequel?
They made a TV movie about it. Mm-hmm.
How long ago was this? I don't even know.
I don't know. A few years ago.
Yeah.
The new one, was it on Lifetime or something?
It's
Probably.
it's probably a Lifetime movie.
Jeez.
Show that I couldn't watch, other than Beavis and Butthead.
Yep, that was mine.
Yeah, Beavis and Butthead. But I don't think I would have watched it on my own. The one that I probably would have watched on my own that my parents didn't want me to watch was Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, I think that was.
I think they were even more adamant that I not watch Ren and Stimpy.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I would watch Ren and Stimpy, and my mom, I don't think neither knew what was really going on in that show, because when we look back at it now, it's clearly not a children's show.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of stuff that really wasn't. What I'm trying to get at is the fact that we watched shows like Ren and Stimpy, Rocko's Modern Life, a lot of shows like that if you look back on it, just like, that's so gross. But then kids today have like Adventure Time and stuff like that.
Clearly made for stoners.
Yeah. So is Adventure Time made for children, or is it made for our generation?
I think it's still trying to pertain and try to go ahead and have the same amount of gas as much as Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead, but they can't cross that line like Beavis and Butthead. And again, even watching Ren and Stimpy, I didn't know it was that adult oriented.
Everything's just so blue.
So I mean, I don't know. Like, it was so. I don't know if I was like close guarded around the television or anything, but got away with watching Beavis and Butthead and got away with watching Ren and Stimpy and that.
Well, I guess it's a good thing too, to look back on it and measure that we did indeed have at least some form of innocence when we were little, because we would have definitely caught all of those jokes if we weren't. So
I kind of wonder if the kids who are growing up with Adventure Time are going to watch it with that kind of innocence and be like, oh, it's just fun. Cute,
yeah, I think they're going to do it.
And then, like, for us, we watch it and we're like, okay, you clearly have to be high to truly, absolutely enjoy the show. Is there a show or a movie? No, show. Let's stick with show.
Okay.
Like how Fuller House is coming out, how, Gilmore Girls, like, the revival's coming out. Is there one show that either, I guess it can be, when you're a teenager, when you're a kid, that was on there that you haven't heard anything about it coming, or a revival coming out that you really want, that you'd be surprised or you'd be happy to find that they do want to remake?
Dinosaurs.
Really?
Okay. You both give me that same look. Just
Not the Mama's the only thing I remember about that show.
Well,
really.
Okay.
it's the kind of that's the kind of show for me that if I remember it, and I remember really liking it when I was little, and when I saw that it was on Netflix, I was like, yes! And then I remember watching it and thinking, wow, this is...
It's not poorly written, but I thought... and the way I found out the spoiler towards the end, and I'm going to say it, is that... And it really doesn't... It has the continuity, of course, what you think the dinosaurs would have gone through. But to actually have a family behind it is just... The ending is abrupt. it's basically the Ice Age. They're trapped inside the house. This is how the season ends. It ends on season 3 or 2. But the way the episode ends is they are watching, as a family, around the television set, is that the Ice Age is happening. And Earl's response to, we'll make it, we'll survive. But the newscaster is, we don't know how long this will go on. And roll credits.
But that's weird because I thought...
Oh, that's sad.
Exactly! It ends on a bleaker note, but it's just like, I want to know more than just those 2-3 seasons that they did have.
I always thought the asteroid hit, and then the dinosaurs...
Yeah,
died.
I thought it was an asteroid.
Well, at the beginning, that's what they had always contemplated. It was like, well, they joke at it at the beginning. It's the first episode, first season, right off the back. They're like, an asteroid is gonna hit Pangea. And I think they point towards that. They're like, and the guy gets handed another paper, and he's like, and it's not. So they kind of carry on as really quickly, and it's just the Ice Age that's pretty much hitting. So.
Okay, gotcha.
When did that show air? Like, was it a primetime show?
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember it coming out, I think it probably came out maybe just a little bit before we were born, or maybe just a little bit after.
I think just a little bit after.
But I think I remember it being on, like, a block before they would show, like, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. They'd show, like, you know, all those...
Blossom.
Yeah.
which is
Saved
my
by the
answer to what you were asking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all those shows.
Yeah, I think that they had a block of it because I remember... That's when I remember watching it. Like, when I would watch it. It was before... It was before, like, Fresh Prince, before Blossom, before Saved by the Bell. And
Family Matters was on that block.
Family Matters, yeah.
And then...
Like, the afternoon block of...
Yep. Full House was part of it, too, at that time, too.
Probably.
Jeez, that was a whole big list of... I bypassed everything. I kind of watched a little bit of Family Matters, but I jumped straight to dinosaurs.
I want to go back and look back to see when they actually originally aired, though. Because there's... What we remember... Well, the episodes and the stuff that we remember watching, that wasn't the original airtime.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Family Matters and stuff, you're talking about when it used to come out on NBC.
Yeah.
It's not an NBC show. It's an ABC show.
Yeah.
Because it was TGIF. So it was like TGIF. The last lineup I remember is TGIF was Boy Meets World with Sabrina the Teenage Witch. What else? Full House, Family Matters, Step by Step.
Jesus, Step by Step.
I love that show.
Ouch.
And but then even before that, see, like, shows like, I don't know why, Step by Step reminded me of Growing Pains. And
I think it was the same thing. To me, honestly, you really couldn't change the coat, but it would look different to me.
So Dinosaurs came out in 91 and ended in 94.
okay.
Jeez,
So
it did have a short run.
So we were...
And aired on what station?
Let's say ABC.
Let's see. I don't know if it says here. I'm looking at IMDb, but I can't find
The network.
the network.
So, going back to your question, if there was a show that we wish they'd bring back or something like that, mine would be Blossom. I'm a huge Blossom fan, and I really don't care who knows it. When the season 1 and 2 came out on DVD a few years ago, I worked at Best Buy at that time, and they had 2 copies, and I bought one. And I remember watching it, and I kid you not, the writing is great. The writing is amazing. It's funny, it's quippy, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it lasted 5 seasons, which I think is good enough.
Mm-hmm. It's respectable.
But the rest of the seasons did not come out on DVD.
Yep.
And I am so angry. It was put on DVD by Shout Factory. And the reason, I always look back on it, and the reason that they didn't continue with the seasons is because of music rights.
Yeah, I think you told me that.
Which sucks because the music is a huge part of that show. Her dad is a musician, and then later on, Joey Lawrence's music started coming out at that point. So music is a huge thing. Plus, she listened to tons of music, and a lot of musical artists came out on that show.
Yeah, I think I did catch a couple of them, so I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Blossom.
Let's hope he's okay with writing it back again, or somebody's up for it. I mean, we're getting a lot of returns of shows that are coming back out. Some of them were fond of coming back, and then some were not. I mean, Tales from the Crypt is coming back. I was happy. And then to come and find out that director M. Night Shyamalan, I'm sorry for people that really, really like him. And I'm pretty sure I do need to give him a second chance with the movie that he did do was The Visit. I probably do need to give him another chance.
I need to give him no chance.
I'll give him a chance, but my whole thing on that anchor, if this show comes back, again, I didn't meet him. You did. Jenny got a good chance to meet him. Got to send me a personal video. It was awesome, and got my season 2 DVD signed. That would be the only reason for me to ever watch that show would be John Casillo to come back. And for him to go ahead and give anybody shivers, for them to redo that intro if they want to do it, if Danny Elfman will come back as well. I mean, that will be my go-to if they do bring it back. I'll give the first episode. If they do it, I'll step away. If it's a toss-up. If they do it the proper way, the perfect execution, and then again they're throwing it on TNT.
I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be kind of like the flavor of like how there was the original Twilight Zone, and then there was like the revival Twilight Zones that were just never the same, and also never on the same quality level.
We're like in an era of rebooting. Like we're in the reboot era, so maybe it will be good. I don't know if it's just kind of like time healed all to where it's like, okay, I miss it. And they have a lot of the original writers, like a show that you mentioned in our first podcast was Twin Peaks.
Right. That was the other thing I was going to bring up is, do you think it'll feel like the same? Do you feel like those characters never left?
For me, it all depended if David Lynch was the one working on it.
He is.
I know.
Now.
And he wasn't.
There was a time where it looked like he was going to, pretty much back out of it completely and let someone else take over. But thank God.
I know.
I mean, who knows? It may suck. But, the chances of it are a lot, to me, better. And also, I think it's more of a truer work, even if it's not good.
Right.
That he's gonna be putting it out there. The show that I think there's two shows that I think would be kind of cool. One would be, I think, like a revival, kind of like Fuller House. I think if they could do like a continuation of the Wonder Years, kind of like how they did the continuation of...
That would be cool.
I mean, because I think it would either be set in the 80s or the 90s, so we relive that time period.
That kid would be our age.
We'd see Winnie Cooper's kids, we'd see Kevin Arnold's kids, we'd see what happened to them.
Kevin Arnold's kid would be our age. That's crazy. I just thought of that.
So,
it's a little weird.
I think kind of like how for our parents watching that was kind of like nostalgic. To see that, it would be kind of like
nostalgic
it'd be us, reliving that time, and also seeing what happened to the characters, especially since that show kind of ends so abruptly. I think that would kind of make it somehow okay if they continued it on or something.
What was your second show? I gotcha.
The second one, I was thinking about, like, I would think a reboot of Alias would be kind of fun. Because one, they're... No. I do.
I like that.
Because...
I like that reaction.
No.
I'm sorry, okay, Oscar got me into Alias, and I love it. I love that show.
But correct me if I'm wrong, that was also an early J.J. Abrams, right?
The third season.
Yeah, the third season kind of kills everything. That doesn't kill it. It just kind of makes things a lot.
Well, you
weird.
see, the third season is still good. It's just I didn't like one of the main characters in it, so for me, I hated it.
And then it ruins everything else that happens afterwards.
Yeah.
But I feel like there isn't a character like Sydney Bristow on TV right now. I think at this point we have we want our characters to be flawed. We want our characters to be, to have that
vulnerable.
To be, to have that. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they anti-heroes? Are they, and I was watching it back, and the first 2 seasons were the good ones. And it's kind of like, for all intents and purposes, she's one of the people, she's like the kind of character that's a good person that a lot of bad things happen to. So it's kind of like, I think that's why you watch it, not so much because it's like, oh, well, this, like, I think we had talked before, like Weeds, where you have a main character, or, Orange is the New Black, where you have a main character that's just, over the course of the show, becomes so unlikable that it's almost like you watch the show for other people besides your main character.
And I still don't know why I continued to see Weeds all the way through. Because I don't like that show.
I feel like you had a conniption fit. You were like, I just wanted to be done.
Well, I don't know.
I gave up on that show.
I did too.
Maybe it was a show I like to hate. It must have been because I watched every single episode. And I liked it up until maybe the 3rd season when she leaves, Agrestic? Mm-hmm. When she leaves, after that's done, then it was just kind of like...
There,
yeah, exactly. Was that the same season when the other family left?
Yes, they just kind of leave the show.
Yeah. That's where it could have, for me, that's where it could have ended, because without see, in that show, it needed balance, and that was what the balance was. The comedic factor. She's suburban mom, trying to make everything perfect. She goes and reaches out of another source she's not familiar with. So that's what kind of takes it out of the element. And then to have the comedic factor of, this family is real. They're going to tell you like it is, and this is how you're going to do it.
See, I would have watched that show.
I would have loved to see it if they did a spin-off of that family.
Yeah. Because
a lot of shit went down with them, and that was great for that show. But as soon as she left Agrestic, that was when I left the show. Yeah. Because I was like, no, this is what I came for. If they're not part of it, who's going to be it? Don't say Kevin Nealon, because Kevin Nealon can only pull so far.
Kevin Nealon just became, like...
annoying, I heard.
I have never liked Kevin Nealon.
I love his stand-up.
Anything.
Well, I feel like in Weeds, he had a purpose in the first 3 seasons, and then he didn't have a purpose for the next 5. Yeah. So...
No. Yeah, that was the only thing going for that
I think
show.
that they just kept him on, 1 for name, and 2...
Well, he was her money source, so...
Yeah.
Oh, let's jump into that. How about series you wish would have ended at one point?
Oh, jeez.
I'm gonna throw it right now, and I know you guys are always thinking it. Dexter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that
and you
same
see,
way.
that one is okay. I don't know if it's just rumored or what, but that one's getting some sort of an alternate ending too.
I feel that show shouldn't be revived either.
I feel very betrayed by that show.
Now,
I love the hell out of it. I have the box set. I own the Dexter box set with the really cool packaging and all that awesomeness. But I feel so betrayed by that show.
I'm gonna stray away and be the different one of the bunch, of course. Is that I didn't feel that way. I wanted to see and Dexter. I wanted to see how far Dexter could carry himself and see how he was a development as a character. I know you guys said he could have ended on what was it season 5 or 6?
Season 4 could have
around there. So you feel like when he was introducing those other people, those so-called politicians, the real truthness of people, he was wanting to go ahead and guide somebody.
Well, no, that was okay. So the political one was season 3. I didn't like season 3, but that's the one with Jimmy Smits.
Loved it.
It's like the weakest of the good seasons.
Yeah. Season 4 was just brilliant. Just absolute
And
brilliant.
that starred who?
John Lithgow.
Oh, yeah. That was beautiful.
As a Trinity killer. And
do you think it could have ended after that?
I think it could have used one more season to round it out, but not the season 5 with Julia Stiles that we got.
She wasn't annoying as I thought she was going to be, and then when it did fizzle out, I was like, that's great that it went that way. I mean, everything you can name, I can go back and forth, and I can go ahead and say this is what I thought of that season. But I think the way it ended, it was a little like a lackluster to the ending. But that's what I had been always envisioned in my head, is that
I think it could have cut out season 5 and gone straight to season 6. And
do you think we could have done without what's her name's character?
The one he ends up
Hannah
with,
McKay?
Hannah.
Hannah McKay.
I think
she could have been presented in a different way.
yeah, and I think what her ultimate fate should have been different. I don't think she should have gotten
away.
I think if it was like he's a psychopath, they should have carried it through to the very, very end and not have made him grow into a more humanized character. That's what killed it for me. Plus the end was shit. But
I was going to segue once you said a more humanized lumberjack.
Well,
Spoiler.
It's just like, oh, well, I love... No, bullshit.
I loved it.
A true psychopath, a true psychopath doesn't know what that is. So it just wouldn't have happened. So no. No.
Walking into it, and what I thought at the end was, I've been thinking this far back. I don't know what season spawned it, but I was like, you know what would be easier if Dexter did, again, spoilers, I'm sorry, is that I wonder how it would go. I always wondered what it would be like if he ever took the route to kill the character of Dexter, how he would play it out. And then when it did come to mind, I was like, that would have been the easiest route from the beginning. Where he was, there's tons of fucking storms. Just so happens that none of the other shit happens. Like, no storms ever come in between the middle of the seasons until the fucking end. That's what kind of threw me off for a loop. Of course, that's not the direct depiction of Miami in my
I would
eyes.
have been so much more satisfied if it ended in the obvious way. And I think that the obvious way would have been for him to have died by gotten caught, died by lethal injection, and Harrison would have had to be taken care of by Deborah, who was so against Harry's code and would have been forced to implement her own code on Harrison when she saw characteristics of a sociopath in
Harrison.
So early on.
We found a quote online that pretty much I think that we can all kind of say is the mission statement for this podcast or this little endeavor of ours.
I'm born in the 80s, raised in the 90s. We are the last generation that learned how to play in the streets. We are the pioneers of Walkmans and chat rooms. We were the last to record songs on radio on the cassettes. We learned how to program VCR before anyone else. We grew up watching Saved by the Bell, The Fresh Prince, and Martin. We traveled in cars with no seatbelts or airbags. We lived without cell phones, and we wrote letters. We grew up without profile likes and bathroom mirror pictures. We had the best of all times.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Agreed.
I mean, as we previously spoke about all that stuff, I mean, that's what we did. Mm-hmm. Is that we have all the stuff that we grew up watching, what we couldn't watch, what we couldn't have as a kid. I mean, that's what it all is, and we wish all the stuff that we could have now in the 90s to come back, at least.
Or at least be revived.
Some shape so we can have that
feeling.
That feeling again.
Which further goes to prove that we are indeed spoiled.
If you want to go and say that.
Well, I think now we've kind of shared more about us and more about our background of the things that have formed us, have kind of made us feel that we want to talk about things that we want to bring forth with this podcast and bring forth with, sharing. So, any last comments, guys?
Rest in peace, David Bowie, and everybody that died this past week. We are very
Rickman.
sad. And as the podcasts go on, as they continue, hopefully,
yes,
you'll hear different stories about how these artists affected us and how we are mourning them in our own way.
There's this quote I remember hearing once, and I can't remember how it goes. I wish that I had it in front of me. But I remember it saying something like that you die 2 deaths in your life. The first death is when you actually die, and the last death is when your name is uttered for the last time. You know, their names aren't going anywhere. So that's, you know.
Saying something about
Yeah.
them.
So.
And it's our job to give it to the next generation.
Mm-hmm. Pass it forward. Make sure Justin Bieber doesn't become the next David Bowie. Just saying.
Over my dead body.
Yes. All right. I think we need a cool catchphrase, but we don't have one now. So, stay classy, Senator.